What's up, y'all? We're back. Man, I'm gonna be perfectly honest here. I'm not really sure what my feelings are on at least the main topic of everything that I'm gonna talk about here. But for the most part, it's actually a little bit tricky for me. A lot of it's gonna be largely AEW. Of course, it's gonna be talking about contracts, extension signings, and so forth. I'm going to start with Penta. It turns out that his contract is ending within the next week with AEW, and this one's really interesting, obviously, for the fact that they extended the contract of his brother Ray Phoenix for time missed due to injury, and that's actually going to be all the way up until sometime relatively late into 2025, if I recall correctly. I'm thinking it's going to be like July, August time, I'm thinking, so we'll be getting back into the new season of football around then. But it's just really, really fascinating that with all this stuff, and actually, I should have prefaced everything or I should have added to the preface by saying that I am actually going to go over a couple of omissions from my video this morning, but I don't know, it's just kind of wild the way that Tony Khan has actually been going about his business when it comes to these situations. And honestly, it's one thing that there was an expectation set that WWE would end up getting both of the Lucha Brothers, but of course Tony Khan in his truest of form just was not so fast, like his name was Lee Corso or something like that. Honestly, I just don't see a reason for him to do this other than the fact that he's just being petty, particularly towards WWE. And this is again where it was talked about, the fact that they want to veer away from trying to be like WWE or even competing with them, yet these were the things that they were doing. Now, I'm kind of hoping that somewhere along the way, just Tony Khan comes to understand what it is that is wrong with the shit that he's been doing in this situation. I just don't know any other way to look at it, but the interesting thing is that we could anticipate seeing him on or seeing Penta rather, on WWE, or possibly even TNA at some point. There's no real word yet on how that is going to be going to unfold, but I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of lost on my words with that to some degree with this, because yeah, we're just going to move right along, and we're also going to talk about one of those aforementioned omissions, which was regarding AEW Grand Slam in Australia. I was assuming it was Melbourne. I didn't really remember the exact city. It was actually supposed to be Brisbane. Now, I'm no expert on Australia. I have actually a friend, a former co-worker, that ended up moving to Australia. I want to say it was Brisbane, but I don't remember 100%. Either way, they were aiming for a stadium show out there, and I'm not going to try to pretend I know anything on the demand as far as pro wrestling out in Australia. I know it's pretty big out there, but what parts, I guess, is apparently debatable. I mean, I have absolutely no idea. If you happen to be seeing this, you're from Australia, or if you've been to Australia and you're familiar with any of these things that I'm speaking of, please let me know. And that's something else I've been meaning to say. Anything that I talk about here, if you feel the need to fact check me, fact check the fucking shit out of me if need be. I don't give a fuck like that, and I will definitely work with y'all on that, and just, if nothing else, it's going to make me better as far as what I'm trying to do here. But getting right back to the point on all this, I'm not sure what the exact expectation was. And I mentioned also earlier that Elimination Chamber earlier this year was out in Australia. It was Perth specifically. I just was stumbling upon that, of course, but I'm not sure if necessarily going to Perth would have been what the difference would have been, but I don't know. I guess for me, a lot of people are talking about how Tony Khan was biting off more than he can chew. There's some truth to that. I'm not going to deny that. But at the same time, I don't think he actually did all of his homework, so to speak, whether it had been research or talking to people or whatever it may be. But either which way, there was not enough of that done on his part to actually get this right. And as I mentioned earlier, might be on the verge of us not getting an AEW Grand Slam Australia. And it's really, really disappointing, and not just for reasons that I said before, but I mean, I guess there's a lot more to it now than what I knew earlier, but nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and talk about an actual contract signing that actually is good news. Lei Ying Lee, formerly known as Xia Li in WWE, is officially signed with TNA Wrestling, and I gotta say, this is gonna prove to be one of the most amazing things you could have happen, especially for a talent like Lei Ying Lee. And it was just really, really tough for her, especially going from NXT, going to the main roster, and of course, I don't want to say she got lost in the shuffle during the Vince regime, but it was pretty evident that there was a good chance that's what was going to end up happening. And even with the switch to the Triple H era, it really hasn't even gotten all that much better. And now look at her, but that's the thing. She signed with TNA, and of course with the likely prospect of Jordynne Grace being, ironically enough, on her way to WWE, I think this is probably one of the best things that TNA could have done for themselves. It's certainly the best thing that could happen for Xia Li, Lei Ying Lee, and I look forward to nothing but the best for her. I'm actually counting on her becoming Knockouts champion, possibly within a year even, so definitely shout out to Lei Ying Lee, and congratulations on a new contract. With that in mind, we're going to go to talking about another contract. Of course, it's yet another extension with AEW, and it's what we talked about earlier, Ricky Starks. Yeah, there were an awful lot of things that I wasn't aware of when I cut this morning's video, and one of which was the fact that they actually extended Ricky Starks' contract. Now, this was actually reported about probably an hour before I had posted my video. And, you know, sometimes that's the way that it works out. Timing is everything when it comes to this sort of thing, and it can be tricky for me. I'm still trying to get these things figured out, but, you know, little by little, I think at the end of the day, the important thing to think about with this here is, if he's actually going to wind up being extended by Tony Khan, this just needs to be said. Tony Khan better do the fucking right thing by this man. And not only that, I actually just found out that the GCW appearances that were actually booked, specifically a match between Ricky Starks and Matt Cardona, that's actually been canceled now. He's actually been pulled from that appearance and any other appearances that he'll be making anywhere else outside of AEW. So yeah, I don't know any other way to look at this, but you know, this shit's gotta fucking stop. I don't know any other way to say this. And honestly, I'm not counting on this to reaching Tony Khan, but if it were somehow to, I gotta tell you, man, this shit's really gotta stop. You know, I heard you were out here talking about we're gonna stop with all the WWE shit, trying to be like them, trying to compete with them, stop with all this shit too. Seriously. Like, I don't know any other way to say it. And the thing about it is that a lot of my content when talking about AEW has actually been really, really favorable. And I really don't know any other way to look at it, and it actually kind of pisses me off, but in all truthfulness, I kind of feel like a moron for a lot of the things that I've been saying, in a lot of ways, but maybe I'm taking that a little more personally than I should be, but bottom line is, if you're going to pull him from appearances, we better see him on TV, like, tomorrow. Like, seriously fucking tomorrow, or as soon as next week. I really don't even give a fuck. You could bring him back at World's End for all I care, but either way, that's just all I'm going to say on that. Y'all know what it is. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. And thanks for checking me out.